House investigates delay in Seaport's concession agreements. House amends National Broadcasting Commission Act. And House holds valedictory session for late OC Prestige. Hello and thanks for joining us on another edition of You and Your Reps. My name is Victor Azul. Welcome. The Seaport's concession agreements between the federal government and private terminal operators signed since 2005 have expired. What could be delaying the renewal of such agreements in view of the fact that government is likely to experience revenue loss in millions of dollars? National Assembly correspondent Lamia Ali reports that the House of Representatives has now mandated its relevant committees to investigate the delay.
The resolution was passed following a motion from Representative Shohukuku in which he observed that the renewal of the port's concession should have commenced in 2016.
Concession agreements that have expired are deemed to have automatically renewed without benefit of full negotiation, provided that concessionaries serve the lesser requisite notice of intent to review in line with the provision of agreements.
The House is also to investigate ExxonMobil for alleged abuse of the Nigerian Content Development Act, as moved by Representative Henry Wauba.
The glaring deliberate abuse of the Nigerian Content Development Act by ExxonMobil and the contract termination of the Nigerian oil companies have caused untold hardship to those indigenous companies and the host communities.
It is inimical to the welfare of the citizens of our country who are suffering this. Then we are obligated to look into it.
The need to rehabilitate dilapidated roads in parts of Sokoto State, as raised by Representative Mohammed Barugaja, was supported by the lawmakers. Wednesday's plenary featured the passage at second reading of a bill seeking the establishment of Nigerian Maritime Trust Fund for the purpose of training and provision of equipment to the Nigerian Navy, sponsored by Representative Yusuf Gagdi, in a bill seeking to amend the Asset Management Corporation Act of Nigeria.
We don't encourage a situation where it's a laissez-faire situation where people are continuing to expire liabilities and suddenly people are abscond, leaving assets that are less than the value of what is to be recovered.
Meanwhile, the House has considered and adopted recommendations of the report of an investigation it instituted concerning the ongoing recruitment into agencies under the Ministry of Interior, and it endorsed the computer-based aptitude test, which was the subject of contention.
The House of Representatives is working on a legislation that seeks to amend the National Broadcasting Commission Act to make more effective regulation of broadcast services in Nigeria. The bill, sponsored by Chairman House Committee on Information, Segun Debumi, and two other members, also made provisions that would ensure that all monies received by the Commission are paid into the Federation account in accordance with Section 162 of the Constitution.
The amendments being considered will reposition the NBC by expanding its regulatory capacity for best practices in the ever-growing broadcast industry in line with current realities. Other provisions of the bill include the establishment of Digital Access Fund, appointment of Secretary and Legal Advisor for the Commission, and new procedure for the renewal of license.
Section 9 of the Principal Act is to be amended by replacing the entire section with a new Section 9 and 9A on the Commission's power to grant license, permits, authorizations, and classifications of licenses under the new regime of digital broadcasting.
It passed second reading and was referred to House Committee on Information for further legislative action. 17 bills passed first reading, including the National Security Trust Fund Bill. The House sequels a motion from Representative Julius Ihomveri urged security agencies to curtail kidnappings in parts of Edo State.
If this spate of kidnappings and abductions are not nipped in the bud, it will has the potential for crippling socioeconomic activities.
Following recent incidences of jailbreaks in some parts of the country, the House mandated Committee on Reformatory Institutions to conduct an investigation as moved by Representative Chudi Moma.
These recent jailbreaks, particularly the Owerri case, where over 1,844 inmates were released and operational tools completely destroyed, have heightened insecurity in the country.
Also to be investigated is illicit trade in human organs, as raised by Representative Rimande Shaulu.
And the House of Representatives has held a valedictory session in honor of late O.C. Chinedu Prestige, who until his death was the member representing Aban North and South Federal Constituency of Abia State. House Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila and other House members during the session recalled the impactful contributions of the deceased lawmaker to his state and country.
He was as committed as he was passionate. He had a consuming energy. He lived larger than life itself.
We have lost a friend collectively. We have lost a friend individually, and this institution has actually lost a friend. He made the most of his God-given talent to raise and mentor others who crossed his path.
House members later paid their last respect to the deceased during a line in state at the lobby of the National Assembly. Late O.C. Prestige died on February 6, 2021 in Germany after a protracted illness. He was first elected as House member in 2015 on the platform of the All Progressives Grand Alliance and re-elected in 2019. Now, ratification, simply put, is the action of signing or giving formal consent to a treaty, contract, or agreement, making it officially valid. How is the term deployed in legislative parlance? Let's hear it from the horse's mouth. Over now to the Chairman, House Committee on Rules and Business, Abubakar Fulata.
Procedurally, whenever Nigeria as a government has gone into an agreement of a sort, especially international conventions, treaties, and so forth, after they doing this, the signing, then procedurally the government is supposed to now bring it to the National Assembly so that that law can now be ratified. Without the National Assembly ratifying that agreement, it is as good as a nullity. Okay? So whenever the executive enters into an agreement, either with a UN agency or with any other government, that treaty or that agreement must be brought to the National Assembly for ratification.
And with ongoing agitation for judicial autonomy, which is also a major feature of the constitutional review process in the House of Representatives, you and your reps engaged the Chairman House Committee on FCT Judiciary, Ifeanyi Chudi Moma, to give us a sense of the pros and cons of the matter and the leaning of the House.
Autonomy has been actually defined in the Constitution, which has to do with for federal Section 81 of the 99 Constitution, while for state Section 121. But the long and short of it is, it's when you have your funds directly released to the agency or to the arm of government or to the system concerned without it going through another arm in order to preserve some sort of independence in the discharge of your duties. I think the basic thing they are asking for, one, is that financial autonomy of the judiciary, which is in the 4th amendment of our 99 Constitution. That is one. Then, of course, better welfare packages. Section 81, subsection 3, makes it explicitly and categorically clear that any amount credited to the judiciary from the CRF, that's the Consolidated Revenue Fund, shall be paid directly to the National Judicial Council. So the Constitution is clear. That's at the federal level. While Section 121 of the same Constitution says any amount credited to either the House of Assembly or the state judiciary shall be credited directly to the heads of courts. So I don't even think autonomy should be a subject matter of discussion, because it is a sacrosanct provision in our Constitution. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. It's a sacrosanct provision in our Constitution. So all we should be talking about is why is the executive or any other arm of government, why is there no strict adherence to that provision of the Constitution? So if it's based on autonomy, in fact, there shouldn't even be strike over autonomy. It's just like the section of the Constitution that says the National Assembly shall constitute of the House of Senate and the House of Reps, and they shall make laws for the order, peace, and good governance of the country. It is sacrosanct. Do you go about deliberating what the National Assembly is supposed to do? It is already well stated and written out categorically. So that is how this financial autonomy of the judiciary is. The leaning of the House of Reps in this regard is very clear. And let me tell you, it has nothing to do with the ongoing constitutional amendment. Do you know why? Because in 2017, the 4th amendment to the Constitution was already passed by the National Assembly, which further reinvigorates, reaffirms, and reiterates the financial autonomy of the judiciary, both at the state level and at the federal level. So if it has been reaffirmed over and over, you can't bring it back for to be part and parcel of the processes of the constitutional amendment, even if you want to bring it in through that angle. While it's in the process, the one that has already been stated in our ground norm, in the law, should be adhered to. We always say judiciary is the last hope of the common man. If an arm of government is making payments for the other arm of government, how is the arm of government that is the beneficiary, how is it supposed to act in an autonomous manner, that is in an independent manner, without making referrals to the proverbial piper that dictates the tune? You understand? So, and this tramples on the dissemination of natural justice. It is very important that the state judiciary should find their own cover on their own. So whenever they want to disseminate justice, they can do it without fear or favor.
One of the most talked about issues in Nigeria at the moment is judicial autonomy. It also features prominently in the ongoing constitutional review process of the 9th House of Representatives. Now, you and your reps went to town to get the views of ordinary Nigerians on the subject.
And we have 3 arms of government, and it is expected that all of them are independent, though they can work together, but they are independent of each other. So I think the agitation for autonomy of our judiciary is something it's a welcome development that I feel that should be granted. If they are not independent, you'll discover that most of the time they have to source their funding from the government, from the executive arm of the government, and if they are to do something, if they are to perform their work as expected, and you discover that this work will affect the executive arm of the government, it is possible they will be muzzled. But if they are if they are independent, then you expect them to be able to do their work. So if they are not truly independent, then justice also will be perverted to a very large extent.
Actually, under democratic setting, judiciary ordinarily they are supposed to be autonomous. So if they are not, that means it's not democracy.
The judiciary matter is a constitutional matter. Anything constitutional should allow the constitution to have its way. A democratic government is controlled and be coordinated by constitution. The governor should, as a matter of urgency and necessity, to allow the state judiciary to have the autonomy. Even at the legislative level, the House of Assembly they have to have their autonomous. That is the only way that democracy can thrive. Even so be it, at the local government level, they should be allowed autonomous. That we have a full-fledged democracy.
These things are very clear. The provisions are within the Constitution. All they need to do is to make sure advice, admonishment is given to those in position of authority, especially the governors. And it's all because of what? The funds that are involved. Otherwise, tell me, is the autonomy of local governments not there? The judiciary that you're talking about, is it not there? They are clearly spelled out. So all they need to do is talk to the governors.
Each of the separate arms of government should have an autonomy, so that there can be a check and balances in the systems of the democracy we are running in the country.
This week on You and Your Reps, the committee segment takes a look at the workings of the House Committee on Foreign Affairs with Chairman of the committee, Representative Yusuf Buba Yakub. He represents the Gombe Hung Federal Constituency of Adamawa State.
Well, legislators, our duty is just very simple and straightforward. What we do is, one, we appropriate funds for the government to execute projects for the people of Nigeria, and then secondly, we don't only appropriate, we follow up, we oversight. During our oversight functions, we follow up to make sure those funds appropriated are judiciously utilized for the benefit of Nigerians. And then we also make laws through bills, and we also advise the government through motions on the floor. But we make laws also for the benefit of Nigerians. That is why the process of lawmaking, we go through first reading, we debate the law on the floor, and then if it passes the second reading, it passes the debate, it goes to third reading, and then we have a public hearing where we bring a different interest group from the community and relevant stakeholders to come and still debate the law. And so that's what we do, but we do these things at committee levels. So whatever is brought to the floor of the House is sent to the committee level. So as in the Committee of Foreign Affairs, we oversight the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and some of its agencies, like the National Institute of International Affairs, the Foreign Academy, the Technical Headquarters, etc. So we appropriate funds for them at the committee level, and we also oversight their activities to make sure they utilize those funds judiciously. So that is what we do as a committee. We have gone out for our oversight, both locally and internationally, because we have about 110 embassies all over the world that are also our responsibility to appropriate funds to and oversight. And apart from that, we have also organized few weeks ago a public hearing, investigative public hearing, to look at some allegations of corruption and malpractices and recklessness in the ministry. And the public hearing was for 2 days. The first day, we engaged the Nigerians all over the world through virtual means, and we brought in major stakeholders that have one thing or the other to do with consular services to Nigerians all over the world, like the immigration, the foreign affairs. The ministers were all there, and Nigerians all over the world asked them questions and told them their problems with consular services. We all know that every day on the pages of newspaper, on social media, and electronic media, Nigerians are complaining about one thing or the other in terms of consular services. And we took a whole day to address that. And the committee will also follow up to make sure those issues are addressed. And the second day, we looked at the corruption allegations, and the committee will soon lay its report before the House for necessary legislative actions on our investigation. Then we jumped into organizing a conference to review the Nigerian foreign policy. You know, the foreign policy of every country is what determines the economic stability, the security, and every other aspect of development in a country, because the foreign policy is tied to the domestic policies. Because the world now is a global village, no country operates on its own. So you must have very strong foreign policies in the way you relate with other nations, so that you can drive maximum advantage from it. And so for more than 35 years or thereabout, foreign policy have not been formally reviewed. During the Babangida era in 1986, there was a review in Kuru, Jos, but the document was not put in use by the government of the day. So the foreign policy document that we had was the one just after independence, and the committee decided to review it through a motion on the floor of the House, and the review was done and concluded yesterday. We are over 50 experts in the field of foreign relations, professors of different expertise, and diplomats, and permanent secretaries from different government agencies that have something to do with the review of our foreign policy. And we have jowed and come out yesterday with a communique, a very rich communique that will help the country to chart a new way forward.
We'd like to wish the House Committee on Foreign Affairs all the very best in its assignment. And that concludes this edition of You and Your Reps. My name is Victor Azu. Join us again.